Today, a high-end Indian wedding is a massive logistical operation. You have hundreds of guests, multi-day itineraries, and an army of event managers and choreographers directing every single movement. The primary objective for these productions is the execution of a multi-day spectacle without a single logistical flaw, often eclipsing the underlying legal or spiritual union. This shift has created a new social pressure. If a couple chooses a quiet, inexpensive ceremony today, they often face intense societal judgment, with peers and neighbors assuming the family lacks the means or the social standing to host a proper event. The aesthetic requirements are equally demanding. Every detail is curated for the camera, from the designer labels to the pristine staging of empty luxury seating, creating a sterile environment designed specifically for optics. Today, the wedding functions as a high-stakes performance metric, where families measure their standing through the complexity and price tag of the event's logistics. To understand how we got here, we have to look at what this industry replaced. Before the 20th century, marriages were quiet, collective village affairs. They were driven by agricultural survival and local family alliances, rather than individual status or public display. The mechanics were rigid. Parents held total authority over the match, and for many couples, the ceremony was the moment they met for the very first time. Beneath that simplicity were harsh realities. Families lived under the constant threat of social ostracization, and the financial burden of the dowry system quietly crippled households for generations. This raises a central question. What specific forces were powerful enough to break thousands of years of strict, localized tradition and replace them with a hyper-globalized industry? The 20th century acted as a rapid accelerator. Massive infrastructure projects began to break the physical isolation that had kept rural Indian communities culturally static for centuries. The expansion of the railway network was the first major mechanism of change. Steam locomotives connected previously isolated towns, allowing people to move across state lines for work and education. Aviation then collapsed those boundaries further. Families could now scatter and work globally, allowing the growing middle class to interact with cultures far beyond their ancestral villages. This mobility changed how people lived. Rapid urbanization pulled families out of large ancestral homes and into city apartments, causing the old system of collective village decision-making to dissolve. Physical mobility was the prerequisite for social change. Society could not change who people married until it first changed where they were allowed to go. The second wave of change arrived through the classroom and the screen. As university enrollment spiked, millions of young women gained the financial autonomy and social exposure needed to challenge the absolute authority of the older generation. Technology provided the tools for this independence. Mobile phones and the internet gave youth private, unmonitored spaces to communicate, effectively bypassing the traditional gatekeepers of the family. This led to the widespread normalization of love marriages. Strict inter-caste taboos began to fade as individuals prioritized their own preferences over the ancient demands of the community. Even arranged marriages began to prioritize individual compatibility over forced stability. We see this in the rising divorce rate, which indicates a new willingness to end a partnership that no longer serves the individual. Modernization successfully achieved its goal. It liberated the individual from the oppressive social fears of traditional society. But this liberation came with a paradox. The same modernization that granted social freedom also introduced a hyper-consumerist mindset to personal relationships. The emotional intimacy of two families uniting was slowly replaced by the logistical anxiety of event management. Aesthetic perfection became the new priority. This created a new performance metric. Couples now fly to destination venues and secure expensive brand-name clothing, often manufacturing specific moments solely for display on social media. Indian couples successfully escaped the social restrictions of the past, but many traded that for the intense financial and emotional pressure of a globalized commercial industry. The evolution of the Indian wedding serves as a metaphor for the country's broader journey toward global integration over the last century. This progress provided the right to mutual consent and the freedom to love, choices that were largely unavailable to previous generations. But it also arrived with the exhaustion of modern expectations. To truly see what was lost, we first have to look past the fireworks and the crowds. Social change was an absolute necessity for human liberation, but we must ask if, in this rush to modernize, we accidentally
idea by
discarded our cultural
Rakesh Suhane.
simplicity.
Generate by AI.